Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Before we jump into any analysis, I just want to direct your attention to the risk disclaimer at the bottom of the stream. Trading futures is risky. Trading in general is risky. Trading the NASDAQ in particular is risky. Nothing you see on the stream should be misconstrued as financial advice. The stream runs about 8 to 10 seconds variable behind live, so anything that you see me doing on stream has already happened in the past. So with that being said, we're opening up green here, I think, across all the major indexes. The NASDAQ did kind of a slow motion rally overnight, and only here this morning around 7 a.m. Central Time did we start to give some of that back. We do have PMI, we have a PMI flash data at 8:45 Central, so here in about 15 minutes. That usually gives a little bit of volatility, so if you happen to be trading before the 30-minute opening range is set, so just know that that data drop is coming and it can sometimes get a little bit whippy. It's also options expiration today. That is something that everyone should have on their radar. It is not necessarily a timed event. It is basically today. It makes for, if you've seen the price action this week, has been, in my opinion, just pretty much trash. It's been very weird and kind of unpredictable. I would expect more of that, but on steroids today, options expiration tends to be pretty volatile and just kind of have some bizarre moves. So head on a swivel. Just know that the volatility and some of the moves today could be a little bit strange, and that's just being driven by the options expiration event. Looking at a higher time frame, up until we decided to start dropping here in the last hour or so, the NASDAQ had kind of pulled itself from the bottom edge of value for the week up to just about to the point of control for the week, which is sitting up at like 29,565. We got just short of that by like maybe 20 or 30 points before we decided to roll back over. Um, I think that now that it's rolling like this, the first area I would kind of look at is probably the edge of value again, which is all the way down at 272. Uh, Looks very much like the U.S. RTH traders disagreed with the overnight session, so we are pulling back here rather abruptly. If I look at the other major indexes this morning, the NASDAQ was a lot more green a few minutes ago, but is up about 1/4%. The same for ES, and the Dow is up more than both of them at about 0.5%. Bitcoin continues its rather aggressive rally. It's up about 5% this morning. Metals are also up about 2 and 1% respectively for silver and gold. Oil is sitting just a little bit, about 1/4% green. I do think that the reason that metals and Bitcoin have caught a bit of a bid is the Fed deciding to, release the US government deciding to step into trying to be supportive of the bond market this week. The bond market responded pretty positively on the first part of that announcement. Then the next day sold it all off. So whenever you kind of see uh, the government dabbling in monetary policy and people not sort of taking to that well, there's kind of a flight to other assets. So like Bitcoin being one, gold, silver being another. So I think that's why you're seeing a rally in that sector. But that is a very aggressive rally in Bitcoin. I think that it's been trading really, really, really sideways slow for quite some time. Um, and typically I would read Bitcoin being up this much as like sort of a risk on event, which I would mean by like people are more willing to buy risky assets. Bitcoin, in by nature of what it is a risky asset. And so sometimes when that happens, you can see the market starting to bid up other risky assets. I don't know that that's really the case in this particular instance. I think Bitcoin is rallying in response to people not really agreeing with, or I guess like thinking that the what the government is doing for the bond market is a good idea. So just something to keep an eye on there. Also, sometimes when Bitcoin starts to trade really cleanly, you can get a little bit of less volume in the overall indexes as people go to trade something that isn't chopping around. So just all things to keep in mind as we head into our Friday session here. Let me take a look at the S&P's top holdings, see what is moving around this morning. Mostly Dow stocks. Almost all Dow stocks are the ones that are up the most. United Health and JP Morgan leading the way. Energy is up a little bit. Everything else is pretty flat. Intel is down 1%, as well as Apple. And Amazon is down almost 1%. So some of the mega caps pulling back here as we open. Intel has actually sold off quite a bit this week. That has been something that the Nasdaq has actually followed quite closely in recent weeks, months. Has a weekly high of 105 and is now trading at 90. So pulled back pretty significantly for that stock this week. So I don't really have a like firm expectation of what we're going to do today. Options expiration kind of throws a wrench into what I would expect from the price movement. I would say that I lean slightly bearish just because we keep every time we pop, we just sell off very aggressively, like we just did right now. Um, I'm gonna wait to let this kind of settle in and see. I think it's gonna be a type, kind of like a hit and run type day. I think it's gonna be try to look for a quick in and out, and I'm gonna do my best to actually not touch it a lot because I think the price action could actually be kind of muddy today, and it's actually been pretty muddy all week. I'm slightly red on the week. I think I'm down like 1 R, so like nothing terrible, but um, got stopped out on uh, Tuesday and didn't take any trades till late on Monday. Got stopped out on Monday and Tuesday. Took a winner on Wednesday. Didn't trade yesterday, and now coming in this morning down just a little bit for the week. So I'm going to take it slow. I'll let PMI come in here in about 8 to 10 minutes and see how the market reacts to that. We did take out, I was like short on, if you were watching the stream on Wednesday, I was short during this crazy hourly set of candles, looking for us to take out this wick. They did it yesterday instead of today, and then as soon as we took it out, we actually basically swept under it, and then that's kind of what started the rally from the end of RTH yesterday into the overnight session today. So the market could definitely want to revisit that. I would look for edge of value as the first place to potentially hold for buyers. If they can't hold there, then I think they may lose the low would be the next target there. Zooming out even further, if we're going to come back to some area of, more volume type support, because we're kind of just like sitting at this is the week of July 20th. This is basically the point of control for that week, which is what we bounced off of, as well as this undercut this wick from the first week of August. There's a little bit of a high volume node right here that was like a little consolidation before the NASDAQ popped back in the first week of August. So if we start to sell off, I think that slash this top here around 28,760 are areas to look for. But I don't know that we're going to move that much during OPEX. It's a it's a day where sometimes you can have some really, really insane moves, particularly late in the session. Like I probably won't be here near the close, but sometimes on options expiration day, you can see the market sort of like, it has a price that where lots of options are expiring. And so there can kind of be almost like this sort of very weird gravitational, sometimes fast and violent move towards a certain direction that might seem counterintuitive to whatever the market is actually doing for the rest of the session. So it doesn't tend to happen in my experience early in the session. It tends to happen sort of later in the afternoon. But if you're trading later in the session, that's something to keep in mind. Options expiration is actually a day that I don't typically trade, but since we're trying to live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday and keep to a pattern there, I'm here and I'm here with you guys. So I'll probably stick to, I used a 30-point stop and 2 micros instead of a 20-point stop and 3 micros on Wednesday. And I was paid for that because my 20-point stop would have been stopped out on the trade that I took profit on, and the 30-point was just enough to keep me in the trade. So I think I'm going to stick to that for Friday, just knowing that it's options expiration and the price action this week has been pretty trashy. see a lot of people complaining in the Discord and also a lot of people complaining on social media. It's late summer, I would assume that hopefully the volume starts to pick back up here soon. Um, but it has been this is really hard to trade. This is really hard to trade, and what we've seen a lot of, like yesterday, was, let me just compress this. These kind of like very aggressive sell-offs. This was like early in the morning before RTH open, and that's like a really nice directional move to trade. And then the rest of the session is just like sideways chop. Makes for very, very hard trading. So today we saw a rally in the overnight, and now we're seeing sort of a drop into RTH. So we'll see what it does once things start to settle in, but wouldn't be surprised if we start to see compression again for this session. It's like it could be compression mixed with volatility from OPEX, which is just a horrible combination. So just going to see how things settle in. I'm going to be really patient this morning to look for anything. But that's all I got for now. Drink my breakfast smoothie and hope that a trade sets up. Now, in the first place, I'm going to scroll my depth of market to. There's a big order here at 320. That's also something you can see a lot of on options expiration day. I'm seeing large positions here. There are some really big buyers down here, actually. So let's note that there's there's 500 contracts here at 320. There's some 13, there's a 19, there's a 50, 20, other 50. So there's a bunch of buyers clustered down here at 300. Basically not too far off from the overnight low. But I'm going to scroll down to this absorption zone from yesterday. This blue gradient here is where I'm going to first look. I still won't take any trades until after the opening range is set. We'll have PMI here in about 2 or 3 minutes. But I like to scroll my depth of market to the area that I'm interested in trading in, even if I'm not taking any trades yet, because then I can see reactions. Like you see, as the market's pulling back here, you can see bids starting to pop up, even though we're still 40 points away from where my depth of market is showing. So gives you just a little hint that people are potentially interested in buying the dip here. Just gonna look. I think there's still all of these big orders here, but there's a bigger order somewhere on the, yeah, okay. So there's this 700 contract order just showed up down here at 270, and they pulled the 500. So somebody decided they wanted to buy the dip, but wanted it at a better price. So they're sitting basically right underneath the overnight low at the moment. So I'm going to watch them to see if they get filled here if we pull back that far. So you have PMI here in about 5 or 10 seconds. Yep, and that's what that reaction is. Just going to be a quick reaction to the data drop. So if you're trading, just know it could get really whippy here for at least a few minutes. sometimes the market doesn't actually care about what the data is, but the algorithms are like so trained to move things around on data drops that they'll move stuff around and liquidity gets pulled because people don't want to get caught in any whipsaw, and that just kind of like reinforces and just becomes sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy as like the algorithms whip things around, people pull liquidity, and you just end up with this kind of like rotational chop. But for now, looks like you got a small pop, but not really moving around too much. I have a hard time believing this 700 contract order won't be kind of a magnet, even if they try to bounce it here. Seems like vaguely unfair, but the market does tend to respond very positively, or at least, tends to head towards large areas of liquidity. So it almost kind of seems like, obviously we don't know what happens when price gets here to 270 if it does, but it seems like if you're a really, really large entity, you can kind of like pull price around as they actually just pulled that order there. Um, I don't know if they moved it somewhere else. There's a 500 here at 320. See if they moved lower because that's what they did the first time. I also just like preoccupy myself with like something else to, oof, boy, that was a fast break there. Uh, Preoccupy myself by looking at the depth of market at different levels. There are studies that will like show these, but motive waves is actually not particularly accurate. Sometimes it shows them, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it depends on how zoomed in you are. It's a little bit annoying. Yeah, so this cluster here was that like 500 some lot order, and it looks like they just broke it up, or at least parts of it, into a bunch of smaller orders. So this is the kind of stuff that you see on options expiration. I mean, this kind of stuff happens on the DOM all the time, but particularly on options expiration day, you just see what I would call a lot of like games being played on the depth of market. So not really surprised to see a bunch of shuffling going on here on this particular day. Got a bit of a buy imbalance here. Does not look like it's super, super big. I think it's this 134 here. Let's watch this cluster of buyers here around 300 and see if they get filled. I mean, buyers basically gave up the almost the whole overnight move. So it's not really an ideal way to open if you want to go higher. I want to see what the weekly candle looks like here on NQ. Gonna be a nice weekly candy on Cantle, not candy. Would like some candy. Nice weekly candle on Bitcoin. Uh, Some people probably very happy to be getting bailed out of some of those positions over there, and probably some very unhappy sellers who I think may have got a little bit complacent, you know. I mean, I also thought Bitcoin might go lower, but it's been going sideways for so long. So you got to trust whichever way it breaks after it's been sitting in one place for that long. All right, weekly candle. I got distracted by candy. Let's see, weekly chart. Yeah, so just a pretty decently red week. We're underneath last week's low. We made a slightly new high at the very, very beginning of this week and then sold it all off. People keep like asking if, you know, are we really going to do this type of price action like all the way until the US midterms? And I feel like I hope not. They're going to try and fill this cluster of buyers here. I hope that we don't chop all the way until November, but it also wouldn't surprise me. I think the way that the US midterms are at least right now looking to potentially shape up, uh, I think that's going to bring some type of changes to the overall picture of, you know, what the government can be doing right now. If Democrats get control of the House and or the Senate, they might really throw a wrench into it. Might just become, the typical sort of stalemate there. But that's a change in overall picture and for a lot of things, and so the market may, maybe in a holding pattern to see what's going to happen there. It's just a lot of like unknowns in the world right now with all the stuff in the Middle East and midterms coming up, and who knows what's happening with all of the AI capex spend, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Personally, I don't really have an opinion about whether the market's like going to go up or down. I just prefer that it stop going sideways for long periods of time. So all of those buyers got filled, and then price is going to drop even further. There's still some bigger orders down here near the overnight low, which they're going to try to cut through right now. But all of those really big lot orders that I saw when I first scrolled down here, there was like a 500 and a 7. They either pulled their orders or they broke it apart into smaller pieces. So still about another 5 to 7 minutes before the opening range gets set. So just going to be incredibly patient today. We've already got a pretty decent sized range going on. The opening range high is at 470 and the low is right around 270. So I'm talking about, a 200-point opening range. So it's moving around. Wow. Sellers are pretty mad this morning. Oh, hey, Ian. I thought you were, and I was like trying to remember because your handle says IC, and I was like, I think that's the right handle. But welcome in. Good morning, or I guess for you, it's good evening over in Singapore. Hopefully that DOM template is working well for you. Yeah, it's a good day to watch. It really is. It's yeah. I have I have definitely taken some stops on options expiration day, so I'm definitely going to be in patient mode. Definitely going to be waiting for, as they say, an A plus setup. I feel like an A plus setup is just one that works in hindsight, right? YouTube is so funny. I try to post like some kind of like short content video before we get on the live stream just to kind of like, another place for people to help discover us. And so posted one this morning that was just like a conversation or like what we talked about on Wednesday about whether trading is gambling or not. And, that's a kind of that's like a kind of a hot topic for traders to debate sometimes. Some people think it's not. I think that it is. So anyway, so I posted this short video of just that clip of me talking about that. And YouTube just hasn't pushed it at all. Like I think it has 0 views at the moment. Posted it like, I don't know, like an hour ago, hour and a half ago. And I wonder if it's like flagging, like the word gambling is flagging any of their content moderation stuff. It's so funny. You'd think with like AI that they would be able to like analyze stuff a little more closely, like maybe they just don't care. But I just popped that open and noticed that that didn't have any views, and I was like, "Oh, that might be why." Using the trigger word. They came back up to this buy and balance here. It's like 315.75 and just rejected it pretty hard, at least temporarily. It's very, very whippy and fast right now. So if you're just joining and you haven't been watching the price action, whippy, fast, probably want to be using a wider stop than you typically do if you are not already. I'm going to use a wider stop. If I touch it, I'll use a 30-point stop probably. Prefer to use a 20-point stop, but yeah, options expiration, and it's already showing me that it's kind of trading like a maniac. Sellers really coming in hot. So it looks like we're going to have about a 220 point opening range with uh, the RTH crew taking out the overnight low. Previous day's low is only about 100 points away from where we are right now. They're going to try to retest this imbalance level again here at 316. That would be a trade that I might take as like a potential short reoffer, but we're still not quite setting into the opening range. And on OPEX, I think when we roll over here in a minute, we're gonna get a pop. Hi, Bullion Trader. Appreciate you pasting that into the chat. There's a lot of stuff going on all over the world. So if you haven't watched the stream, you'll know that like I've said that I pay a little bit of attention to to what happens around the world, but I do not keep a dedicated news feed up because it's to me it's hard enough to trade the Nasdaq, and it's even harder to trade the Nasdaq and also try to interpret how it thinks the news is going to go down at one time. So like I think my suggestion for most traders, everybody's different, but my suggestion is to be like know kind of generally what's going on, but try not to carry that um, into your trading in the morning. In fact, let me see what one of our members said yesterday because I thought it was really smart. Yeah. He said, there's other things that countries do with our debt as well, but it means fuck all for what NQ and ES are going to do for the next 2 hours, so I'll shelve it until later. So, yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff going on around the world, but that doesn't mean that it has any pertinence to what you're doing for a trade that might last 5 to 10 minutes. So, I think when you walk in the door and you sit in front of your trading stream, like um, you gotta really leave some of your biases at the door if you can. Bullion Trader, you're welcome to join us, but I can't have you copy and pasting random things about news into chat. So we're just kind of like ping-ponging between this imbalance level that we put in at 315 and this like 280 level, which is where all that cluster of sellers got filled, and it's also the absorption level from yesterday. Or sorry, those cluster of buyers that got filled here. Um, so just put in another imbalance there, but still kind of choppy. Actually, not even kind of choppy, just really choppy. We kind of like went down, chopped, went down a little more, and chopped some more. So not a lot of direction so far. I'm gonna put that, we knocked out one of those. So we're selling off this imbalance level. That, like I said, that was a trade that I would have taken, but not like right at 9 a.m. Central Time here where the opening range had just got set. So wait for another spot. I'm actually just gonna go look at that level because it looks like they might want to try to get back to it. We'll call it 316, basically this area here. It's like right around the previous day's close. That's the little yellow marker on the depth of market. If I were to get short there, let's say I get short around, let's see, where is this at? Yeah, I might try to get short around 320-ish, and then I could put my stop right around 350 on the other side of this seller absorption here. We'd be looking for previous day's low. Yeah, that's right, Ian. If you're a swing trader, you're a longer term horizon trader, the news matters a lot more to you. But that's just like a different type of analysis, and different type of risk management than what we do here. I can't handle the stress of swing trading. I've tried. I just, even with small size, I'm just like, I hate overnight risk. I don't know if my friend Wags is in here this morning, but he knows for sure that I've tried to hold options positions and stuff overnight. Nothing like, whenever I say that I'm doing stuff like that, it's not like I'm trading, tons of size, but I just like for whatever reason, I just like I love being able to be flat at the end of a session and not have to think about it anymore. So they're going to retest this level here. A little bit aggressive from the buy side, so let me let this settle in. There's some sellers stacking right above this level as well. So let me see what they do here. A little bit of liquidity grab. All right, I'm short there. Stop is 352. See some sellers holding price there. See if it sticks. If we get below 280, I'm going to move my stop to break even. Back below this buy imbalance here. I always feel like mildly justified if my position at least briefly goes into profit. I'm like, okay, I took a couple positions on Monday. Like we finished the stream and then there was a trade that I've been talking about on stream that finally like set up. And I was like, oh, let me take this. And like both my entries, I just like, I must have had like, I don't even know that I went into profit either time. Just flat out got, flat out got smacked. Um, so I'm always like on this trade, like I'm like, if I get stopped right now, okay. But I like to at least think that my initial analysis was correct enough for me to get into position. Man, it is really, really, really volatile in there. Or it could just sit on top of my entry for however long. It's fun. I don't love that sellers haven't been able to push this candle color back over. It means that the buyers are still quite aggressive in throwing some volume. So, as I've said before, I don't really do analysis once I'm like, I mean, I'll do analysis, but I won't like change my position like once I'm in it. But I would like to see this roll over soon-ish. The longer it holds here is going to be not good for my position. Let's have some rather persistent buyers here in front of 300. I coded this thing a long time ago that I only used live for a little bit, and it was just really chaotic to use. But I sort of dubbed the reloader because I found that I just like my entries tended to be really like price would chop around them a lot. And so I built something that would kind of like rotate one contract out like every like 5 or 10 points and then like reload when it came back to my position. It's like kind of a neat idea, but in practice, it was a lot of orders to manage. Like even though it was algorithmic and it just messed up a lot, so I quit using it. But I think it was mostly just like exercising my discomfort about not doing anything once I'm in a trade. So like I said, stop to break even on a break below 280. Of course, they're going to bounce it like right in front of it, but as they do. All right, there's a break of 280. My stop's going to break even. I'm going to take one off on a break of the low. We'll sit right in front of 253. Full target is a look below the, we'll look for below the previous day's low. I'm playing a little conservative. Typically, I would try to hold my two contracts all the way to the previous day's low, but I hate trading OPEX. So if I'm going to get paid here in the first part of this, I'm going to take it. All right, that one's off. Have a runner on. So we'll just kind of trail this one. I tried this on Wednesday. If you watch the Wednesday stream, I tried trailing and I got stopped back in profit. So, but taking that off there was just a little bit better than covering my risk on two contracts. So hard to argue with that. Let's see what the sell crowd has here. This is testing below value. Thanks, Ian. Profits on a Friday. If we can get down there, that'll get me almost back to break even-ish for the week, I think, if we can take profit below the previous day's low. Otherwise, it's like very, very small red week for me. took stops in the first part of the week and then have had winning trades the last couple sessions. And honestly, if I exit OPEX week just a little bit red, like I ain't mad. Yes, I think yes and no, Ian. So with with ES does move slower, but it's also a lot thicker. Uh, so there's lots more contracts on there. So it's a little harder to see anomalies like we see here on the Nasdaq, but it might not be a bad place to start. The other reason that I might suggest ES is that it just moves a little, it just in general moves a little slower, like not just the depth of market. So it's a little easier to control for risk. Like trading one MES is not the same as trading one MNQ in terms of risk, in my opinion, just because of how the Nasdaq moves. So, but what I would suggest as a baseline is pick one and watch just that one because you'll kind of confuse yourself if you're trying to learn two different assets. So whichever one you want to pick. I started with MES, or I was watching ES and cross trading to MES, um, and I learned a lot by watching that depth of market. So would definitely uh, would definitely say that that's still a viable market to look at. That was a hard rejection on that buy imbalance there at 280. It's like almost instant 40, closing in on 50-point move off of that. If you're just joining the stream, short from 320, where we saw that this buy and balance level here, this like blue dashed line, stop was up at 352. Um, took one off at the on new lows here, new RTH lows, and trying to hold the other one until into the previous day's low. Thanks for joining, Ian. Maybe we'll see you again on Monday. Enjoy the weekend. All right, I'm gonna pop over to a higher time frame. Previous day's low is my first target. I'm gonna kind of continue to trail this. We're trading right at this, the place that where I wanted it to go on Wednesday when I was short. Um, so let's see when they break the low, like if they break the low, how they break it. If it's like a pretty strong aggressive break, might look for like 180-ish, like a real undercut of the previous day's low. I used to make fun of people that had those like have these like big cups, and then I got one that's like it's like one of those ones you can like take the lid off and like it's like a blender itself. It's like so convenient, so much less dishes to wash. Just like wake up, strawberries, strawberry yogurt, milk, and oats into the thing. Instant breakfast. What's my P&L, David? It should be up on screen. So if it says session, that's what I've closed, and then I still have some open P&L because I still have one micro. Yeah, it's all good. No, it's all good. You can check me because I have a program written to display that way, and if it's not showing, then it's a good call out if you tell me that it's not working because that means I need to go I need to go fix something. So I'm going to move my stop down to below this. We're going to go right above 300. That would be like back into the opening range, just locking in a little bit of profit. It's OPEX. I don't want to give back all of it. Just actually going to go right into here, back below this low here. If they get back into the opening range, low, like that far back into the opening range and above that buy imbalance, they're going to come find my stop anyway, I think. Pretty strong push from the buyers here off the low. See what they do when they get to this imbalance, if they can get there. This is exactly what happened to me on Wednesday too. I should just start taking my full take profit, but it's okay. It's a pretty aggressive move there from sellers. So a little cluster of buyers there at 240. They may come find my stop while I'm hunting around. There's this big order right at the low, which I would assume they want to try to get, but they're looking for my stop. They're going to find it here in just about a second. So when I'm like looking at places for like my stop placement, like I have this absorption level from yesterday. I have this buy and balance which they rejected once already. They just rejected again. So I kind of think about those things structurally when I'm placing my stop. Um, Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That was a pretty nasty rejection there at 280. I'm actually going to for that's this one. I'm just going to turn that extra zone off, so we'll just look at whatever's traded today. I'm going to try this 280 level again. You got my stop. All right. Not surprised on OpEx. So stopped in profit there. Like a 1.5 R winner. So I was looking for taking that runner off below the previous day's low, and we just held about 18 points in front of it. So yeah, they're back above. Yeah, they're like all the way back to where my entry was. So I feel justified in where I took that runner off and gave it a chance to roll over, but I'm basically back to where I got in almost. If you're not used to trading OpEx, it's a very like hit and run type of session. You just get some bizarre moves. So I'm still red on the week, but only by like half R right now. Took some stops earlier in the week and then winners the last couple sessions, but the winners have been on the smaller side, unfortunately, because I was uh looking for more in terms of taking one off and then trying to hold for a deeper push, and that's not worked either time. It'll work the first time that I actually just go ahead and take the full take profit, and then we'll go ahead and drop 400 points on my short from there, but that's just how the market works. Also, if you're new here, just joined, welcome in. Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe. We're here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, even on the days that are insane like OpEx. They had a really big order all the way at the low. They might have just pulled it though, because I saw the liquidity grow on my depth of market. Yeah, they pulled it. There was like a 500 contract order sitting at 220, which I thought they might fill when I was still short, but they did not. Didn't quite get back to where my original entry was, but they got my runner by plenty of points. I'm potentially interested in being short again, but not right here. Now they're like holding this buy and balance that they rejected pretty violently a couple times. So I would want to see them get back up to like through basically to where I shorted again. Anything in between is just probably not a good idea. That was like a 100-point move off the low. Yeah, David, I'm trading a prop account from Lucid Trading. So I have a funded account from them, but if you're just joining the or you're just new to the stream, I'm trading a 50K account and uh, basically attempting to size up. So I've pretty much only ever traded with one micro. And any other time that I've traded with something other than one micro, I've gotten my butt kicked. So as an experiment and for learning for all parties observing, I am trading at least two contracts. I was trying to trade three, and then the volatility got crazy, and so I'm trading two with a 30-point stop instead of three with a 20-point stop. Um, so yeah, from Lucid Trading. If you're not familiar with Lucid, we're not like endorsed by them or anything like that, not partnered with them, but they do have a pretty good deal. If you trade with Motive Wave, you can basically pay for an account. They're not monthly recurring fees, so you pay a flat fee, and then you can also get a free license for Motive Wave. And Motive Wave's monthly subscription is like they have varying tiers, but it's like somewhere between $30 and $60 a month. But you basically get that for free through Lucid if you have one of their accounts, which I think is a pretty sweet deal. I mean, you're basically getting like the prop account itself, you're getting a rhythmic data feed, and you're getting a platform, all for all for one flat fee price. So as long as you're not just like, blowing accounts left and right, it's a pretty good deal in my opinion. I think they have a special right now. Don't quote me on this, but I want to say that like a 50K account is like $75 or something like that, maybe 80 last time I looked. I have a personal futures account through Edge Clear. I don't trade it very often, but I do use its data feed from time to time for other purposes. Maybe I'll trade it on stream sometime. I feel like almost everybody trades prop these days, so you could have a Zack trades his personal account and has a panic attack on stream. It's like this cluster of selling here. Well, you can see it on the delta volume on the side from like 93 to 90. I'm just kind of getting stuck below that right now. If this goes back and gets the low after they took my runner, I will be moderately annoyed. But I just like I can't justify being that far in the money and not taking some profit on the runner. So putting it above whatever the previous, like I was both above this lower high and then they wicked that and I was still a little bit higher than that. So it is what it is. But unless they get this back up closer to 320, it's going to be harder for me to find a place to get back in if I want to. But like walking away green on OPEX, even if it's only like 1.5 R, like I'm gonna be happy about that. Yeah, so now they're kind of stuck below this buy imbalance here at 280. I don't like it as much. Like if you're like, well, why did you short off of this one earlier and not off of this one? So this one was a bit out in space. I also had the previous day's close and the Globex open as defense as well. So I was short at 322. So we took about 10 points of heat, 10 to 12 points of heat on a 30-point stop, which is, I think, actually pretty decent in this volatility. But this one is a lot more just like in the middle of chop. You just had a bunch of rotations around it. So we've reacted to it like once cleanly and then maybe twice. And now we're just kind of like rotating around it. So I'm just going to leave it alone. More than one micro on a funded. Well, it's tricky for me to say, David, without knowing more information. Uh, if you've found success trading one micro and you've been able to like pass a prop, like a 50K prop account challenge, then I would say go for it. Also, if blowing one of those accounts doesn't like hurt you monetarily, uh, then sure, it's like worth the experiment. I wouldn't try to do it if you're not super experienced or if you just are trying to pass the account faster. Uh, that would be it's hard for me to say without knowing more. Um, I know that my friend Wags, who may or may not be in here right now, is not a proponent of trading multiple contracts on 50K accounts. He thinks that it's too much risk. I think that it probably is too. The thing that you can look at is like, let's say that we can do some quick math for you. So I think it's a $2,000 stop loss on the 50K account from Lucid. So let's say you risk two contracts and you do 30 points. So you're risking $120 a trade. So 2,000 divided by 120, there's going to be some fees in there. You roughly have to get stopped out about, call it 15 to 16 times in a row, like no winners at all on two micros and a 30-point stop. So if you look at your stats and you have streaks that are long enough, that would show that you might get close to that, then I would say don't do that. But if you're like, my worst streaks are like 5 or 7 or 8, and then I usually make it back, then the math might work for you. That's how I calculate. And that's why I'm trading 2 or 3 micros here. So like if I'm risking call it 60 points or $120 on a $2,000 stop loss, then my stats show me that I don't lose in streaks like that for that long. To me, the way to think about sizing up is like if you're trading well and like things are going well, you're taking a lot of good trades, you feel like you're seeing the market, then like adding size to that is like just like juicing the thing that's already working, right? If things aren't working well for you and you add size, then you're just juicing the bad thing. You're just like making whatever's not working work even less. And then there's also like the psychological aspects of like if you're used to trading one micro and seeing what your P&L does when that happens and what it's like to take losses on one micro, it will feel very different when you trade 2 or 3. Like I traded 3 micros on stream. I think it was like maybe 2 weeks ago was the first time that I did that. And like even though I knew what I was controlling for risk, Like I was like, I should like hook myself up to a heart monitor because I could like feel my heart rate go up. Which is like silly, but like we all have stuff around money and size and volatility and everything else. So it's not usually just as simple as like adding one or two more contracts. I'm getting a bit more interested in this 280 area. I'm not sure that I will get back in, but buyers are having a really hard time holding above it. So if they come back up to it now, I might take a look and see what they want to do in that area. All right, so we're gonna look at like 280. Stop would be back in this like 310 to 315 area. So we'd want to be short a little bit higher than 380 if we can. Just want to see where we're at. Like the problem is that we're trading like right at the edge of value, which is like I think I called it out when we were selling off in the first hour. I was like, this is a place the market might want to try and hold. So I don't know that I really want to be short there. I was pretty happy with the short up here. There's 280. See how they trade here. Yeah, they're not holding 280 cleanly, so just continuing to rotate around it. Really glad that I didn't put that position on. Would have taken that right in the face. Go peek at this 320 area. I don't like it as much the second time. It feels like we're getting really choppy again. Let's take a look at the other indexes and see how everything else has started to shape up now that we've been trading for a little bit. So the NASDAQ is exactly flat, like basically like right here. ES is mildly green, just held a higher low. The Dow is up the most, but has pulled back from its high. Bitcoin continues to rage. Metals are still up. And the VIX is down 3.5%. The VIX has been all over this week. I have no idea what it's doing. Like ES is up like 1/4% and the VIX is down 3%. Okay. Also, if you're just joining us, welcome. Feel free to like and subscribe. We're here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Love new people. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. Just too much to ask for a trend. This is like I said it at the beginning of the stream too. I was like, this is exactly what we've done the last few sessions too, right? Like if we look at yesterday, let me just compress this so it fits on screen. This was actually this is like in the overnight, and then early in the morning it popped, and then RTH opened right around here, and then it just did that nonsense all day long. You know, you got a little bit of movement later, but it was just a gross session. And now we're kind of doing some version of the same thing. Again, we're like back up to this buy imbalance. I'm gonna let it trade here a minute. I'm not gonna hop right back into position. I sometimes peek on like the day trading subreddit and someone will like post, some choppy version of that. And you'll always get some person that will hop in and be like, "Well, you need to learn how to trade mean reversion." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." But like this is really like this kind of stuff is like really easy to trade in hindsight. You're like, "Well, you just bought 300 and you sold 380 each time." Okay, sure. I frown upon that stuff because it makes beginners feel like they're doing something wrong and you're not doing something wrong. Like even the most experienced traders, I've been trading for a really long time, that type of rotation stuff is really hard to trade. Like unless you have a predefined reason as to why you want to be shorting there or longing there, it just is something that is easy to look back on a chart after the day is all the way over and been like, oh yeah, I should have just been buying and selling there, obviously. So just Reddit trolls, in my opinion. Because I feel like also like if I took this short earlier in the morning, like I didn't take it to be a mean reversion short. I took a uh I took an order flow related. There were sellers that were stacking here. We had the Globex open the previous day's close, and I obviously wanted it to trend. I would have loved for it to trend while I was still in position, and it trended long enough for me to get one off. And then it got my runner as we got back into the opening range. But like, am I a mean reversion trader or am I a trend trader? I'm a trend trader if it, if it continues to follow this down. But, if I sold it here and bought it here and sold it again, then I'm a mean reversion trader. I think it's just silly. Like, take trades in places that are high probability areas for a reaction to happen in your favor. And who cares if you call it trend trading or mean reversion trading. I would highly discourage people to like, take really aggressive down moves and be trying to like pick out bottoms from that or aggressive up moves and pick tops on that. That type of mean reversion trading is what I would just call knife catching. So, but I get frustrated when people try to like slap labels on it and tell new traders that, they're messing things up because they're not doing one thing or the other. It's just like not helpful. Are we going back up? I have no idea, David. On OpEx too, all sorts of crazy things could happen. I see that one of our members just posted a longer term horizon chart and she does not like where it is. Yeah, I tend to agree with her. I think on a higher time frame, the Nasdaq is really starting to have some problems. Like if we zoom out and look at this, all right, so let's just like play out this story, right? So like back in the first part of July, we put in this top around 30.65 and sold off from it all the way down to 27.200, right? And this was after we rejected that same level multiple times. So you had first rejection, second rejection, third rejection, and then we came up to it all the way in the first week of August and rejected it almost to the tick again. And then last week we broke out of that um, at the end of the week and kind of went sideways, but we didn't hang out up here for very long. You can see the point of the control for this week is all the way down here at 29,500. And so that's another fail above 30K. And now sellers are starting to push, we're now closer to 29K than we are to 30K. So you know, I don't like to predict things on longer term timeframes, but that many attempts to get above 30K and the market just not being interested in taking it higher is not a good sign for buyers long term, in my opinion. Honestly, though, like I wouldn't say that I'm a bull or a bear or one way or the other. I really just want the market to move cleanly. Is that so much to ask? Apparently it is, but I just want a clean trend and to stop chopping and preferably to have some level of volatility, but selfishly a tradable amount of volatility and not like, you know, crazy insane. So basically just kind of shy of where I was short again. I was short at 322 the first time. They got it to like basically almost that price and are trying to roll back over again. I just think that the second time is a harder trade. We're like back into the opening range. You did a little bit of volume down here at 230, but it might be enough that that just like whoever these sellers were just got squeezed back up. You're seeing sellers stack here right around the same price. I think if it breaks here to the upside, then if I was going to long it, which I'm not going to, but like if I was, my target would be like 380. I would look for the midpoint there. But if I've got to use a 20, if I've got to use a 30-point stop in this volatility, then if I want 3 to 1, I want more like 90 points, which is like 410, which is starting to stretch that trade a little bit, in my opinion. Volume is a bad indicator. You want to elaborate on why you think that volume is a bad indicator? I think it depends on how you're using volume. Just gonna pop into chat and throw a hand grenade like volume is a bad indicator. I'm ready. Let's go. I'm not in a trade. I think volume is actually, depending on how you use it. No, I don't believe volume is completely manipulated. I'm going to disagree with you there. Whoever started, this is like me, I'm going to climb onto my soapbox here for just a moment. Whoever started this whole idea about market manipulation, like, was probably selling a course. There is so much money. There is so much money in futures markets, or if you're trading Nvidia or like any of the main like liquid mega cap stocks, there is not one entity that is like moving things around or taking your stop losses or is just not a thing. You would serve yourself well to just like evict that from your brain. Like I literally did, if you watch our rewind the tape episode on the second episode, you'll watch 100 contract buyer on the NASDAQ basically chase price up multiple points and then get filled and then had price drop like 60 points on top of them. So just because you have more money doesn't mean you know where price is going. So I think that that's another thing that like really trips up new traders. Like they're not manipulating anything. Look, the caveat that I'll give you is if you're trading uh if you trade really illiquid things, right? Which is not the Nasdaq and it's not the S&P futures. It's probably not even really the Dow futures, but if you trade really illiquid things, you trade like small caps that don't have any volume, yes, absolutely those can be manipulated because there's just not enough participants and people with lots of money can move price around quite a bit. But no single entity is like uh is manipulating the futures markets. And even if they are, there's nothing you can do about it. That doesn't help you trade. but like anybody that has watched me trade on stream and take shorts or longs off of really large volume imbalances, which is basically what these delta imbalances are, know that, you know, I'm a profitable trader, so they do work. I'm gonna push back above the Globex open here. This would have been all the way back to where I was short originally, but buyers got a little bit of momentum here, so I'm gonna keep my hands off the steering wheel. So nice trend here from like 8:30, basically right at the open. Nice trend all the way into the lows. You had one pop that we shorted and took a piece of that, and now just starting to like trade back over itself. I won't be trading all the way until the close live here, but if you are, just know that on OPEX, there can be some really weird price action towards the end of the day. So if price starts moving really aggressively in one direction or another, I would caution you about fading that. I have like, I feel like we probably all have this, but I have like one memory that sticks in my head where there was a day that we were like selling off all day long on options expiration. And then like, I want to say it like an hour and 15 until close. And just like, I think we took the whole thing back. It was like a 500 or 600 point move down that we took all the way back, closed at the highs. So still seeing some larger sellers offer in this like mid 320s area. But if they get this above 335 here, I think you're going to see this squeeze a little bit. Like you're seeing sellers put larger offers out there, and price, instead of backing away from them, is just like Pac-Man style, just eating the whole thing. Now you're seeing big buyers show up. Yeah, I would not not be short right here for the moment, at least by my based on what I'm seeing. There's another seller there at 335. Let's see if price wants that too. Yup. Yep. That's what I said. I said if it got above 335, that you were going to see some covering. And I'm not long here because I don't have confidence that it's going to go high enough for me to be getting enough like to make the risk to reward worth it. So, because I would have wanted to wait for it to get above this 325 level. kind of like where I shorted before, and then I'd be getting long, maybe like, I don't know, trying to get long at 330-ish. So like stop below 300, it's like a 30-point stop. Be looking for like 410 to 420, which is a pretty far move. So I think it's important, and it's like something that even I struggle to remember with sometimes. Like your entry is important, but you got to know, like, just because you think the market's going to do something, you got to be able to look at whatever you're risking per trade and see if the reward is worth it by whatever system or whatever you follow. So just like thinking that it's going to pop here is not enough for me to like get into said trade. You have a cluster of sellers up here at like 350 to 365-ish. I'm just scrolling up to see if there's any larger liquidity higher. Mm, how far I can scroll up here. It's 127 contracts up at 500. That's way up here. So I'm not sure the market's going to pay attention to that far away, but notable. If we can get above the session mid and start to put in some volume up there, I might try to buy a pullback, but buyers still have some work to do. Is anybody else trading any other assets than NQ or MNQ? I know that metals have been on a nice run this week. I don't trade metals, but price action has looked a lot cleaner over there than whatever's been going on in equities. A little bit of weakness on that push. That was probably them getting into this cluster of sellers here. Got a big buyer that's following price up here. There's a sell imbalance there. So it gives me like a little point of reference to work off of if I want to take a trade near here. I won't just like take a trade out in space. Like if the price got up to the mid, like if you haven't watched the stream before, like I'm not gonna just like short the mid. Like I won't really, these are what I would call like MGI levels, so market generated information. So like that's like things like the high, the low, the previous day's low, et cetera, et cetera. And those are perfectly valid places to be taking trades. But as an order flow trader, I need to see something more than just, that level. Preferably, I see one of those levels uh, mixed with some order flow information, some buyer stacking, some seller stacking, whatever it might be. Price getting stuck at a certain place, but just by itself. Like that was this trade that I took earlier this morning, right? Was like saw sellers defending the 320s, so got short there, but that was also the previous day's close and the Globex open. So that was it's like three different things to line up with for taking a trade. How do you like trading YM, David? I've never traded YM before, but you're the second person this week that has told me they've been trading YM, and the other person said that it was actually pretty clean. Oh, so you're taking concurrent positions too. Nice. Yeah, I assumed that YM was a little bit less volatile. Uh, I feel like it would be like hmm, probably closer to ES if I had to guess, but just more like thinly traded. I know RTY is another one that people trade as well. If you're new to the stream, I like harp on this all the time. I think that if you're a newer trader, picking one asset and just trading that one asset for a long time is like I traded MES for probably 2 or 3 years, maybe longer, before I switched over to NQ, and then that was like a huge shock to switch over to NQ. It doesn't move anything like the other indexes. Got my butt kicked for the first few months. But that's why I think that prop accounts are like great, right? You know, for like 50 to $100, you can take quite a few trades, get yourself oriented to what you're actually trading, and you're actually not risking what you would be risking if you had to trade that in like a personal account. I don't think prop firms are like the answer, like long term. Like I think if you eventually start to trade really well and you're like taking payouts regularly and managing your risk really well, I think you should take that money that you're pulling from the prop accounts and put it into a personal account to trade later. You actually don't need a ton of uh, you actually don't need a ton of liquidity to trade micros. You need more liquidity to trade micros and hold them overnight, but the margin requirements for trading a single micro in a cash account is actually really not very much. It's kind of scary how little you actually need. Like I'm kind of spitballing off the top of my head, but I think you can trade a full NQ contract on like 500 to $800 of margin, which is bonkers. To me, that's mostly just like brokers wanting to like take your money, but there was this cluster of sellers here in like the 350s to 360s, which is kind of where NQ just got stuck. Put in this sell imbalance while we're up here and now kind of pulling back a little bit. But it's not enough for me to want to short it here yet because we haven't pulled back very far from it. So I'd want to see a pullback to like, let's see, that imbalance is 355. I'd probably want to see a retest of like 320-ish, basically the area that like it couldn't break through for a little bit. So like if it gets back here and then comes back up and struggles again, that might be a potential short. Would probably look for 300 or back to this buy imbalance if that was the trade, but not just going to short it here. Like I need to see reactions off of the level that I want to be uh, trading against. Man, I made the error yesterday. I'm a pretty avid like runner and cyclist, and I lifted on, I guess it was Wednesday, and woke up yesterday and was like, ah, I'm not that sore. Great, I'm gonna go for a run. So I went for a run and also went on a run to like slightly increase my pace. Highly paying the price for that right now, especially as I'm here at a standing desk. Just opening that door in the back. It's my home lab, and it gets unhappy if that door is closed. Like I do have active ventilation in it, but it's still, there's like 6 computers in there, so it like gets mad if it gets too hot. To me, this is like a perfect example of like why I don't short these imbalances like right when they show up, because like I just haven't seen that it matters yet. You know, like the most that they've pulled back from it is like 10 points. And like I don't want it, not trying to trade for 10 points. Like I want 60 to 90 points. So until we pull back more aggressively off this level, I don't really like hold it as like having weight as buyers go ahead or trying to push there again. But yeah, I kind of messed that up with making my legs super sore because I'm like, oh, now I'm gonna come in here and stream in this morning, and the setup that I have is actually not so conducive to just like switching it down to like sitting at my desk. So I'm gonna stand here and complain and suffer. I feel like there's always somehow more viewership on Friday streams. I don't know if people have like Fridays off or like just more flexible with their work schedules, but Yeah, it's always popping off more on Fridays. Volatility wise, I think we've settled in just a little bit, but my head is still on a swivel with it being OPEX. Let's see what the rest of the market is doing. Let's see how things have opened up a bit. So mostly Dow stocks leading the way in the S&P. Google is up almost 1%. Meta following. Intel still down almost 2%. Nvidia and Apple both down. Nothing's down a bunch though. Like Intel's down 2%. Everything else is like just below 1%. Did anybody see that Bassett said on in an interview yesterday that he was seeing a quote spike in oil prices that he didn't know why that was happening. I was like, does anybody want to give him a hint? I always hate that there's like, the people that are like the reporters that are like interviewing him. I'm like, just please somebody just call him on his bullshit. Like the strait is closed. The war in Iran is still somewhat like in this like ambiguous floaty phase, and you're unclear as to why oil might be spiking. Okay, sure, dude. I like posted that into our Discord the other day, and one of our members sent the gift that's the guy in the hot dog that's like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. I'm like, you're right. Oh man. They're pulling back a little bit off this level, but like I said, I want to see it back below 320 and then revisit this 360 before I think about potentially taking a short up here. Otherwise, I think it just like tries to put in a higher low and potentially like push higher off of that. If you're just joining the stream, I took one trade early in the session, right after the opening range was set. So I shorted around 322. There were some sellers holding this area, and price had already rejected it once. So I got short on the revisit. It was also the Globex open in the previous day's close. So I got one off on new lows, and then I had a runner on that I trailed into profit, and they took that on the way back up. So I was holding, looking to see if we would sweep the previous day's low and to take my last contract off there, but didn't get there. And that's the second time that that's happened this week. So if you watched on Wednesday, uh, I was also short the Nasdaq and got one off, and then they came back and got my runner again. So easy to say in hindsight that I should have taken it off, but if I had kept that runner on and we were now trading down at like 120, I'd be really annoyed with myself for having taken that off too soon. I see some new people popping in. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. We've slowed down a lot since the open. They're going to try to retest this imbalance level here. It's like right here at 355 and a quarter. But it didn't pull back far enough for me to want to try to short this. They are kind of struggling with this level, but I just don't love where this is at. Like just short of the midline. If it was doing this just above the mid or like slightly out of value, I might be a little bit more interested. But as it is, I'm just probably going to leave it alone here. It's like another rejection of that imbalance, though. The more times that it does that, the more interested I get in potentially trying to short it there. But only going to get so many looks at it before it actually sells if it's going to. Also, if you're new to the stream, we have we do an episode each week called Rewind the Tape. So we take one trade from the live stream and break it down in really slow motion, look at the price ladder, look at the depth of market, and go into more detail about why I took the trade, what I was seeing, what the order flow was showing at the time, and kind of use it as a teaching opportunity. So we have 2 episodes out. We'll do another one this weekend. So we release them typically on Mondays. But there's 2 episodes to watch. So if you're new to the stream and you haven't seen them, and or if you're new to order flow, I would recommend that. I think they're good to watch. I think they're uh, hopefully insightful into how to start reading the price ladder and some of the things you can look for to potentially add to your repertoire for taking trades. And they're pretty short. They're like maybe 10 to 12 minutes long. So right back up to this same price. Got back up there in a hurry though. Yeah, but not that 355 is not holding cleanly this time. So let's see how this is looking on an hourly chart. Zoom in just a little bit. Yeah. So basically held the edge of this week's value. I'm bouncing off of that right now. That was also why I wasn't so interested in taking the so like we were short here and took some off down here and then got stopped on our runner here, but you know, they showed us the same price and they actually struggled. You'll see that when we came up to this price here, let me just zoom in. So when we came back up to this price where I was short before, we really struggled to get back above it. And the reason that I didn't short it again was when I looked at that, what it looked like is we were bouncing like just kind of a clear rejection from the outside of value, and that has kind of continued to play out. So that's why I didn't take that trade. These big bubbles here are one of our studies that look for extremes when it comes to like price trying to like make a new high. And in this case, if it's making a new high, and there's some weakness at the end of that, so if you're seeing a little bit of negative delta at the end of that move, then it flags with a bubble. And the bigger the bubble, the bigger the imbalance. So these are from GlobeX, and then these would be from RTH. So they're just kind of like, it's not something that like I see one of these and I just like hop into a short. They're contextual. So both times we tried to push here, buyers haven't had a ton of oomph. Just means they're struggling a little bit to kind of continue the positive delta, continue the aggressive buying all the way through that move. But none of the studies that I have on chart are ones that are like, you know, a signal pops off and that means I'm hopping right into position. Like right, the edge of value is actually lined up like perfectly with the mid, which is probably a bit notable. Like I think they're almost exactly the same price. You actually don't see that very often. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good place to short, but just noting that they actually do line up. I think they're I think it's like so much so that like my mid line price is like printing, I guess it's like half a point. It's a yeah, it's 2 ticks. So it's 29,380 is the edge of value and 29,379 and half is the midline. It's about as close as it's going to get probably. Just kind of a slow grind higher here. If sellers can't get this to roll over soon, you're starting to get into the what was a very aggressive 5 minute opening candle for like the 8:30 candle. And if buyers get this much higher into that, I think you're probably going to see this start to accelerate to the upside. Like if they get this above this um, lower high here at like 390, I think you might start to catch some momentum. Or like right now. That's happened a couple times today. I'm not usually quite that good at calling those out, but a little bit of a market whisperer at the moment, even though I'm not doing anything with it. Pretty thin volume up here, so if price wants to, if buyers want to take this higher, I'm still more like leaning towards the short side. I'm not stepping in front of this right now, unless buyers can come up here and start doing a lot more volume, just like your concentration of volume is still down here. So I would probably look at this zone here. It's like first point of reference if we want to start thinking about a potential reversion back down into like the 340 to 300 range, but I'm not stepping in front of this here, and I'm not so interested in longs. But if you're shorting, I would be at least modestly careful here because you are now about halfway, maybe like a third of the way up into the 5 minute opening candle, which was a really big down candle. So uh, sometimes when that happens, you start to see acceleration like you are right now. That's back above 400. And if you're not aware, it is OPEX. I've said it a few times on stream, but it's options expiration. The price action can be really volatile, kind of strange sometimes. So just head on a swivel. I took one trade near the open or near the start of the opening range and haven't touched it since. But this is a pretty nice reversal from the buyers. Like point of control on the hourly chart is like 565. It's like 150 points away. So basically that's all the way back up through the high. It's kind of where they got rejected in the overnight. Also, if you're new to the stream, welcome. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. Kind of starting to get a V-shaped recovery here. A little choppy near the bottom, but yeah, like once they got it back into the opening range, they like tagged the opening range low and it's just been upside ever since. And even if we get into this zone, that does not mean, just in case anybody's new and hasn't watched me trade here, I won't just be like shorting this as soon as it gets here. Like I'll let it trade ultimately what I would want to see is it reject this, come back down, and then give us an opportunity on a retest. That keeps me from stepping in front of the train. I'm going to go see if there's any large orders that they're providing upside target for these guys. Woo, there it goes. Oh, yep. Yeah. No interest in shorting that yet. So there's this big order up here at 500, which might be a little bit of a magnet. And that's like all the way up here. So all right, so I'm going to scroll up into the like 440 to 460, and we'll see what price does when it gets there. Nice trading, David. Yeah, this is too parabolic for me to step in front of. So would need to see a pretty decent sell reaction out of this zone from I think that zone got put in right before the RTH open. But when I was just talking about earlier about like people talking about mean reversion trading, you can trade however you want, but for me, like I don't find it useful or very profitable to like try and pick the top out of this move. I'll let sellers decide where they want to try to hold it, and then I'll join it. And then if they don't show up, then I don't have to be a part of it. I don't have to take a stop for that. So, but this is steep. This is steep to the upside and it's accelerating. So, oh, there's a big seller, or actually it was a big buyer that they filled right there at 409. It was a iceberg order. You had to watch it really fast to be able to see it, but basically they sold down and someone had a bunch of contracts to buy. So it looks like a sell imbalance, but it was really a buyer that was sitting there at 445. Man, they're cooking now. Sellers better be careful. This is very, very, very steep to the upside. They're going to come up to the opening range high, which is also, there's a big order right there. Opening range high, and this imbalance is like 475. Let's see what it looks like when we get there. That's that sell imbalance right here at this negative 90 right here. So it's like 75 and 3/4. They're going to be up to it in just a moment. Welcome to OPEX, where price can do insane things. That's a wild move. That is basically from like, that's a 120-point move, basically in one line. There's a little bit of exhaustion there from the buy crowd. That's what that marker is. Seller's finally going to step in for at least just a second, and maybe some people taking a little bit of profit there. And back down to this 445. That's where this iceberg was here. 445 1/4. Big order there. Kind of interested to see what they do if they retest this price. Another big order there. Get some real size coming in from the buy side. Little sell imbalance there at 450. There's a much bigger order that just showed up somewhere. Let's see where it's at. Because it just dwarfed my 150. Let's see if I can find where they're sticking this. Yeah, so there's 610 contracts now up at 530, which is up by the high. And let this trade here for a minute. I'm like semi-interested in potentially taking a long because I think that that big order is going to be a bit of a price magnet. So kind of watching this 445 area, but I want to see this big buyer get filled first and see what they do after that. Build them. I'm just watching this trade here. Right now they're defending this 445 area. All right, I'm long there. 443 3/4. Stop is going to be 415. I'm going to see if they if they happen to break the opening range high, then I will move my stop into profit. Be pretty tight there, but just kind of following momentum to the upside here, giving it some space. Well, that wasn't my best entry there. I don't like someone putting 150 contracts right in front of my stop. That's not helpful. I'm not risking quite 30 points. Technically, that would be 1375 if I can do math. Yeah, they held that price just like long enough to get me long there. But not a great looking entry from me. Well, right back to my entry though. That was aggressive by the buyers. That was like the open of that 500 vol candle, and it was like, I'm going the other direction. I want to see if this big order is still up here. Scroll my depth of market up. There's a big order there at 500. See if there's still, yeah, and there's still this big one up at 530. So I will take one off. We'll join in with this big order here at 500 if they get it there. And then I'll hold the other one for the higher big order. Not my best entry. Don't like that. Like that it's in profit now, obviously, but my read was just a little earlier. They decided to sweep that instead of hold it cleanly. Man, that was an incredible buy, an incredible buy move off of 426. Like it was like there, like for like a just a beat. There's a pop of the high. See if they can carry momentum through there. If you're just joining us, welcome to the stream. Got long on a pullback here, looking for 29,500 to get the first half of my position off. And we're looking at 500 because there is a big seller here, and then trying to hold if they can get it further up to this bigger seller at 530. So just taking one off along the way, risking about 30 points per contract, like a 30-point stop on this. Oof on that pullback. Just using those large orders up there as potential magnets. We have this imbalance that we kind of took an entry off of. See if it provides defense or a place of support for the way on the way back down here. But that was a bit more aggressive on a pullback there than I would have liked to see, but gonna be back to break even here in just a second. But really, I'm like, I can't take profit there, or I really shouldn't be taking profit up there because I'm risking about 30 points, and we got like not quite 2 to 1 there. So back to my entry here. See if that same spot holds on the way back down. Buyers better step in here soon, though. If I get stopped, I'll be like barely green on the session. Just kind of poking my head over to a higher time frame. That was not a nice pullback there. Buyers just completely lost momentum right above the opening range high. Just gonna check and see if those larger orders are still up here. So yes, now we have a 480 there, 102. Still have the big one at 500 where I was looking to take first take profit. And higher, there's still this 600 contract order, which is where I think price wants to try to go. But they might get my stop first. If they happen to get my stop on the way down and don't get very far through it, I would look for a rebid of the same price that I'm long at now to try one more time. But hopefully I don't need that. Also, if you're new to the stream, feel free to hit the like button, subscribe. We stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Usually 8:30 to whenever the market starts to slow down and be choppy around lunch. So don't have like an exact cutoff time, usually just whenever I'm tired of watching it go sideways, which has been a lot of this week. Like, come on, buyers, you got it all the way up here. Just gonna kind of shit the bed at the high. Some buyers in the 430s trying to play a little defense, but buyers were a lot more aggressive a few minutes ago. Oh, might be my stop right, almost. That was close. Oh my God, just do it. Oh my God. I was like seriously just like gonna hover right on my stop. So still slightly green on the session. That was a much deeper pullback than I wanted to see there from the buyers. That was kind of ugly. So I might take the same trade one more time if they can get it back above like 445 or so. At the moment, they basically just got my stop and are going right back up. So, but I'm not so apt to hop back in. That's a pretty aggressive pullback there off the high. Got like maybe like what was I 440? Mm, maybe just about 30 or 40 points in my favor, but that's like 1 to 1 if I'm risking 30 points, and so I'm not going to be taking risk off. Like I had an offer ready at 500, so that's taking it off closer to like 2 to 1. And then had another offer up at like 530. But for me, I can't go taking profit at 1 to 1 because I'm not that accurate of a trader. Like I take a lot of stops and I just get when my winners tend to be big and so they pay for my losses. So if I start taking off small winners, then like long term, like I won't be profitable. So I just have to like even though I like got into profit, I know a lot of people might watch and be like, "Why are you letting that come all the way back?" I'm like, well, David, my take profit is somewhere between 60 and 90 points if I'm using a 30-point stop. So technically that would be multiplied by the number of contracts that I have on, but yeah, 30 actual or sorry, 60 to 90 actual points from my position. So if I'm long at 440, then I'm looking for like 500-ish for my first take profit. I prefer 3 to 1, but sometimes like on days like OPEX, I'll trade a little more conservatively, but like 2 to 1 is kind of my bare minimum. So this got to like whatever, like 1 to 1 or 1.5-ish to 1. I think it's just like 1 to 1. So it's like really ugly and gross when that happens because like, you're at like arguably caught a nice, a nice dip and rally off of that. And, you obviously want to see buyers try to uh, hold a higher low off of that, which they could not. That was the second trade of the stream. If you're just joining us, I had a short here off of 320-ish, 322-ish. Sellers really played some defense there at the Globex open and the previous day's close. So I took one off at the low, got stopped on the runner, and then we got long on the pullback here around this imbalance. I was a little early. We got a rally, didn't get far enough into my first take profit, was at 500. And now they are kind of dumping this, to be honest with you. So I feel justified that my stop was in the proper place because I'd be taking another 20 to 30 points of heat here. But I would take that trade again. You see that that kind of momentum and such a clear big order, which may or may not be there anymore, but um, just in my observation, that just happens a lot. So you see, this was the order that I was targeting for first take profit. And then let's see if the 600 contract order is still up here. Nope, they pulled that, which is probably why price is going back down. So there was like two parts to that order. Well, three parts to that order. Pretty aggressive rally from the buyers. Got really close up to the opening range high. So I thought, well, if we get that close to the high on a pullback and a push, they probably are going to try to take out the high, which they did. There was this order here at 445. I'll just scroll up to there. Just walk you guys through that trade. There's this big order here, and what this was is on the way up, price kind of pulled back a little bit to 445 and a quarter, and there was an iceberg buy order there that basically just sat there and absorbed like 400 contracts in a row. And then once that happened, I watched it trade for just a little bit. I got long a little bit early, didn't stop me on the pullback, and then we got the rally up to the high. And I just was, my thought was if we get back up through the high and we take it out, there should be enough to squeeze us up to like 500 and get that big order. And then maybe we go get the bigger order around 530 to 540. But instead, we got through the high, buyers fumbled and dropped us all the way back down by almost 100 points, taking me and my stop with it. I used to play that game a lot where I'd kind of kick myself for being like, oh, I didn't take profit, you know? But like you have to trust the math more so than you have to trust your emotions of like seeing yourself, up X number of points or dollars or whatever it is that you look at. Because like long term, I just know that if I start taking trades off at 1 to 1, but I'm not accurate enough to win 50% of my trades, like I'm just not going to be profitable long term. It's just like how it works. Yeah, the studies that you see on chart, those are our ScalperIQ studies. So they are a mix of cumulative delta, volume, and price action, which is doing the candle coloring. And then we have some other studies on here for like the dashed lines are sell imbalances. The solid zone here is like a delta extreme. So when sellers in this case pushed it really, really far to one extreme, but the candle coloring is based on our delta flow study. So if you're interested in that, we have free trials, free 14-day trials available. But there's no, I don't have any EMA or the EWMA. I don't have any of that on my chart. So by no means do you have to like use our studies to follow along on stream, but that's what you're seeing and why my chart looks a little bit different than other people's. Man, that was not a nice pullback. Also, give me just 1 second, guys. I'm going to go off camera for just a minute. The stream will stay up. I'll be back in just a second. All right. Had to get something else to drink. Finally found some buyers. But I'm not quite as excited about a long now after that kind of pullback. But they get it back above, like we saw some buyers trying to defend this like 430 area. So if they can get above 430, trade there, might just take a stab at the exact same trade again. Would probably be almost identical. So I would be long in like the 440s or like high 30s. Stop would be back down closer to 400, and then first take profit would be around 500. But just kind of generally just kind of a nasty pullback there. Gave back a little bit over half of the sort of like this more parabolic up move. The other reason I don't like it as much this next time is I think the big order that I was tracking is gone. So there's this one at 500, which would be like the first take profit. But I think the 600 or 700 contract order disappeared. Sure enough. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I don't like it quite as much because that was going to be my kind of my price magnet. I'd have to look. I might be able to look on replay to see if this drop here coincided with them pulling that order. It really wouldn't surprise me. So I'm just going to scroll my depth of market down to where I would be interested in getting in. Kind of like this area. But sellers defending a sell imbalance there. May just want to fall back into range here. Just like, now that you're like sellers have momentum kind of here to the downside, you start to look at where was the last place we had some consolidation, which would be like 350. Gross. And that's just like that's like a very OpEx style move. I think not all the time, but I think a lot of times when you go all the way, whoops, close my platform there. When you go all the way from the low to the high, and we really only had like, I guess you could call it two pullbacks. There's this really small one here, and then this one here before we took out the high. But when you kind of just go up to the high and like like momentum style vertical squeeze like that, then you have more stops above the high, and then those kind of feed the move higher. So, I have no regrets about trying to take that long position that didn't work. But on OpEx, sometimes things don't work quite the same way as they do on other days. So I'm green on the session and like down, I think like maybe, can I do math in my head? 1R for the week. So really small red week at the moment. Like Monday and Tuesday, I took stops and just like nasty stops too. Just like I didn't take a trade. I guess I didn't take a trade on Monday and took like uh 2 or 3 trades on, good Lord. That might be news. If you're in position, just, yeah, not going to touch it. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but that's going to be untouchable there for a little bit. Uh, yeah, it's a news candle or it's just OpEx being OpEx. It looks like a news candle, but hands off the steering wheels for me. I don't trade that stuff. I'm even apt to be like, if I happen to be in position, like let's say for some reason I happen to be long at 400, I would have probably exited half my position just on that speed alone. I don't like holding through that stuff because if it comes right back down and knifes the other direction, like you can get slippage and all sorts of stuff. So I just leave it alone when it's doing that. That was a bonkers move. You see the little blue diamond that showed up here? That's just like an aggressive, doesn't necessarily mean we don't have anything on the chart that's like a buy or sell signal. That's just like a signal to let you know that the delta was floating pretty negative and it went sharply positive very, very quickly. And that's what that marker is. So, in case you were wondering why that showed up there. So, we were pretty deeply negative here from all the selling, and then it just, whatever that news pop was, just sent it, but it looks like the market doesn't care about whatever it is now. You see it hold that imbalance level almost to the T. Basically held almost exactly what my entry was, my long entry was before I got stopped. Funny how that works. Also, I see a few new people in here. Welcome to the stream. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. Hit the like button, subscribe, helps the stream out. We stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We start at the open around 8:30 a.m. Central and go until I feel that the market is too choppy or boring to continue watching. So usually around 11:30 to like around now. I'll probably be here for about another hour just because OPEX is moving price around quite a bit. But there was a couple days this week that I cut it off a little early because it was just so gross and choppy. I don't have a dedicated news feed up, so I can't tell you what that pop was about. And the reason I don't do that is because for me, if I start reading headlines and I'm like, oh, that's a bearish headline, I feel like it kind of like skews my read, which is I'm just reading order flow. I just want to see where there's buyers and sellers and trade off of that. Um, to me, it doesn't matter if like the news only matters, and even then, the content of the news doesn't matter unless we like sell off and we start aggressively selling all the way down. Then I'm gonna look for a short. Uh, but whatever it is not that big of a deal because the market popped and is now right back to where it was before it popped. So kind of like these. It's like the first time I've tried this. What is it? Body armor. It's like I think it's like quote natural Gatorade. Still replacing electrolytes from my run yesterday. It's so hot here in Texas. And that's another reason like that I said right before this happened, I was like, oh, if it gets back above 430, I'm potentially interested in, maybe getting long again, trying again for the high, but not when it does that. First of all, the only way you can really catch that is like having a buy stop order in. But if you happen to have a buy stop order in, when it does that, you may get filled, 8 or 10 points away, and then it just messes up where my stop loss needs to be. So, and if the depth of market starts moving like that, like let's say, I don't know, let's say I even had like a buy order down here and I didn't get filled, and I see that do that, I'll cancel all my orders and just let everything settle in. The only way that I will keep my position if that's happening is like, let's say I was long from like, I don't know, 280 or 300. Like if price is really far away and it wants to try to do something like that and I already have a stop in profit, then I'll just let it do whatever I want, whatever it wants to do. But not if I'm like trying to get into position or already like in position relatively close to where all this is taking place. I'm going to take a look at the other indexes to see how they have responded to this kind of rally in the NASDAQ. Man, ES got really far through its high. Like ES got through its high enough that that's what I wanted to that's what I wanted to see on my NASDAQ position. Didn't happen. And then it gave a bunch of it back on that pullback too. The Dow was like the strongest one on that pullback. Like it still pulled back quite a bit, but not as aggressively. Also, if I break even, or even if I take another trade and get stopped on it and I'm down just like, I would be down less than 1 R because we already have a little bit of profit. So if I take one more stop and I'm down like whatever that would be, like 30 points on the session, like I'm very happy with that walking away from OpEx. It would be like a small red week for me, but totally totally normal. And the price action has honestly, this price action is better than the price action has been for the last 4 days. The last 4 days have been awful. So I took one winner on Wednesday. Wasn't able to trade yesterday, but the price action also looked terrible, so I don't really regret that. Sometimes price action gets a little better once options expiration is over, so we'll see if that's the case as we go into next week. It's funny, one of you was asking about the candle coloring on the chart. I've been using these studies for so long that I don't even hardly know how to look at a like regular candle colored chart. I don't have like I have TradingView up on my phone, and I have like pink and blue, that's like cotton candy colors, that are my 5 minute bars, but I don't trade from my phone, so I just use it as like a quick glance. But yeah, I wouldn't even know what to do on a regular colored chart anymore. I've been using these studies for well over a year now. I haven't looked, but I would guess that whatever that quick pop was probably a tweet, if I had to guess. Don't even have to say who it's from, but market cared for like 25 seconds and then just didn't care anymore. It's so annoying though. Like, I mean, if you happen to be, if you happen to be short or taking a short on the pullback, whatever it is, and then you get that nasty candle that comes and gets your stop, it's just aggravating. Didn't have I was like I got stopped in the long, so I was already out, but getting stopped like this is way less frustrating to me than getting stopped like that. I wouldn't be surprised for this to try to come back up and get back above this like wick high here. We start getting too far below 400, and I think that becomes less likely. But the longer that buyers sit here and just kind of let it sit here, sometimes you see that like this quick reaction, market digest it, and then ultimately go back in the original position. But I'm going to let that play out on its own instead of taking a position for that. Yeah, the Delta Flow study does a lot of work behind the scenes to try to smooth out the trends as much as possible. So it's one of our most popular studies and one of my favorite studies to use for that exact reason because yeah, you're right. Trying to follow like a cumulative delta study, um, just in my opinion, tends to be really, really noisy. Even like, even looking at the side of where I have delta volume, which shows like the delta at every single price, like this is incredibly noisy. Like I have it up just so that I can see large orders, so I can kind of like have a point of reference when I'm placing my stops and getting entries and things like that. But anything that's down here that's like negative 26, 10, negative 9, whatever it is, like I just ignore whatever the other stuff is in the middle, unless you get like a cluster, right? Like unless you get like say like from, you know, 440 down to like 436 and all of this was like huge cell, like it was all cell colors and all really large size, then I might kind of look at an area. But yeah, everything else is noise. Like that's the tricky part, I think, with order flow is that some of it can be really, really noisy and it's hard to know what to pay attention to. So, but yeah, the candle coloring simplifies things a lot. Kind of like squarely in the middle of Wall Street lunch here. It's like 12:40 Eastern time, so things slowing down just a little bit. And I'm Central time here, so it's a little early for lunch, but I really liked when I lived on the East Coast because then my lunchtime lined up with the market's lunchtime. But been in Texas now for about 3 years. Buyers really defending this 29,400 area. I think if sellers don't get it below there soon, you're going to see a push back up into the 440s, 430s. I still want to see the buyers win and get it back above 430 to 440 before I consider taking a position. This little spike in the middle didn't help my like it didn't make things cleaner for me to take a trade in there, but we'll see what it does if it gets up to this area again. Seeing buyers kind of push it up off 400 right now. Aside from this quick little like news spike, we just like really started to compress here. You're now trading, we traded, what is this, 270 to 480, so like 200 points up. And now for the last 30 minutes, we've traded inside of like a 20-point range. This is like, this kind of stuff is like take your money mode. Also, if you're new to the channel and you are new or to order flow, even if you're not new to order flow, we have a weekly series called Rewind the Tape where we take one of the trades from the live stream and break it down in greater detail, kind of go into what the order flow is showing, why I took the trade, why it worked, why it didn't work. So if that is something that is interesting to you, that is on our channel. We have 2 episodes up. We will have a 3rd episode up at the beginning of next week. So we'll take a trade from this week and look at it more in detail. And buyers getting it back above this sell imbalance here. Or trying. I think the upside case here is like if buyers get this back above 440, then I think they try to put the, this high and definitely and potentially the like Globex high in play. I think that the sell case is if they can't get back above these sell imbalances here, I think your danger if you're long is rolling back over and headed back towards the point of control, which is all the way down here at like 300. But I already took one stop in this on this pullback here, so I'm going to be a little more cautious about jumping back in. My preference is they take out this whatever this news drop high is and then give me a little pullback into like the low 440s. So 440 stop would be like 410. We would use this sell imbalance here that they're kind of struggling with as potential defense for the stop. Like somebody just came in and basically like chucked a hand grenade into price action here at like, and the market was like, I don't really care so much anymore. pretty strong rejection of 420 there. I feel like buyers need to start pushing this up here pretty soon, or I think we're going to see lower. Like as long as they're holding this, like, they held basically like the low 390s. I think as long as they're holding above that, they're probably okay. But if they get below the midline for the session, that's going to be like giving back almost the entire up move. It's getting really choppy right now. I'll be here for like another like 45 minutes-ish. If we're still kind of chopping by that point or haven't really started to pick back up, then we'll probably call it for the session, but still kind of waiting to see if a long trade might potentially play out here. Buyers got the RTH high and then they got a pretty steep pullback from there, and now we've just kind of been chopping sideways. So let's see if buyers have anything left in the tank. But honestly, like if they start to fall back down into this, you know, this big area of volume, like my expectation then is price action does not improve if we get down there. All of this was pretty exciting. It was pretty fun to trade the morning price action. And then now for the last, whatever, 45 minutes, not so much. Seller's going to try to break that 390. Oop, there it goes. Yuck. Nice trade off of like if you were able to take a short off of this 420 area. I was too busy looking to think we might get along, but now I'm not so interested. Buyers kind of dropping the ball. Definitely dropped the ball above the opening range high. That was not appreciated by me since I was long there. But yeah, I mean, if we're gonna like go all the way from the low and take out the opening range high, like yeah, I'm gonna be long on a pullback. Buyers trying to bounce it off the midline here for the session. If you're new here, welcome. Feel free to hop in chat and say hi. If you're just joining, I took one short trade earlier this morning off the Globex open and close, and there was a 320 level that sellers were defending pretty hard. Took one contract off on new lows. We had a runner that got stopped in profit. We bought this pullback here. It was a little early, but bought this pullback. Didn't get to the first take profit at 500 and stopped out on the way back down. It's so funny. I mentioned earlier, I try to put up like a some kind of like short form video before each stream and post it to different social accounts. So I posted to YouTube and I posted to Instagram. And let me check to see. I think like the YouTube one had exactly 0 views. So like I don't know if we did like a short video just talking about like the question of whether you consider trading to be gambling, which I do. But it was just a short like 45-second video. So posted it to Instagram and posted it to YouTube. And Instagram is like going crazy. I don't know how many views it has, but like it's like tons of interactions and everything else. I think YouTube has approximately 0 views. I don't know how that stuff works. I don't know if maybe like YouTube has like I don't know if like the word gamble is a flagged word, and so they're like not pushing it because of that. Like we're not talking about gambling, we're just talking about the idea of whether you consider trading to be gambling. But I don't know. Don't argue with the algorithm. It does whatever the algorithm wants to do. But that short video is technically up on our channel, so if you guys want to go watch a short little video on that, you're welcome to do so. It's probably more interesting than whatever the NASDAQ is doing at this exact moment in time. I just don't understand how people don't think that trading is like somehow not gambling. Like, yeah, there's no like flashing lights and, well, hopefully not in most trading environments, but there's no like, bells and whistles like there is at a slot machine. But, you know, you're placing money on the idea that something is going to happen in hopes that that happens before the other thing happens and you lose money. Like, to me, that's the same as betting on a hand of poker. You're trying to take high probability setups and make money on them. And like I went to Vegas with some coworkers in 2016, I think. And honestly, like I really didn't have that good of a time. The guy who I was working for at the time gave each one of us, there was like 3 of us that he gave each one of us, I kid you not, he gave each one of us like $1,000 or $2,000 to trade with. It was crazy. And his whole thing was he's like, if one of you makes money, then he's like, maybe he's like, he wanted like I don't remember, like a 15 or 20% cut, which I was like, okay, sure. And I promptly lost all of that in like a day. Was glad it wasn't my money. This is just getting so choppy here. Just getting so choppy. Somebody commented on that gambling post and said they're above that type of rage bait. I'm not trying to rage bait anybody. I feel like it's a very common I feel like it's a very common discussion in trading about whether it's gambling or not. So I'll be here for like I think I'm gonna hang out for like another like 15 or 20 minutes. Price is really not. We're just chopping around in this area and not seeing a lot of other good things happening. If you happen to be new here, feel free to take this opportunity to like and subscribe. We'll be back again on Monday, 8:30 in the morning. And just because I'm not doing anything here at the moment as I'm watching, waiting for this to try to get back above 440. If you have any questions, order flow related, trading related, questions about any of the studies that are on the chart, feel free to throw them in chat. I'll answer as many as I can before I head out for the Friday. There's also a link in the description to our Discord. So it's free to join, and we're a friendly bunch, and I'm in there. I'll answer questions. Um, don't have to be a ScalperIQ member to join. Trying at this 420 level again. I just think this is like too late in the session for me to be taking trades. I'm typically a morning trader. Maybe like this trade that I took back here, which is like right around 11, like 10:45 to 11 is usually about as late as I start to trade, because otherwise we start to do what we're doing right now, which is just taking people's money. I actually think that this 420 is kind of setting up more for a potential short trade than going up. I think buyers gave back maybe just a hair too much on that pullback. So I'm probably not going to short this that late in the session, but if I was, 420 would probably be around where my entry would be, and my stop would be on the other side of this other imbalance back up at 450. But the reason that I feel like I don't want to take that is this is that news spike from earlier in the session. I don't know if it was a tweet or a news headline or whatever. And the market has a really has a habit of sometimes cleaning up both sides of those moves, and it's cleaned up the lower one and it hasn't cleaned up the upper one. So that makes me want to like not jump into a potential short trade there. Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons that we could be going lower here. You can be looking on a higher time frame for overlap and volume profile stuff for sure. So yeah, there's overlap from the week of August 6th here. But you're really just kind of trading in the middle. You're like just barely below the weekly mid. This is the weekly point of control, or sorry, you're below the mid of, not the weekly mid, but the mid between the high and low of value for the week. So just like looking at a higher time frame in terms of like where we might look at. Not a great week for the buy crowd. We actually made new highs very early in the week. I think that was the first day of the session during Globex. They made a new high, and then we gave it all back. Traded below the low of the swing low here, below last week's low. Doesn't look awesome. I think I said it earlier in the session. Like this is, I don't know, the fourth or fifth time that we've failed above 30K. And they got it above 30K. I mean, they got it above 30K by like 300 some points. And then when you look at it pulling back, like it didn't hold it at all. It just like knifed it in the overnight session and then hasn't looked back. It's not a great look from buyers, to be honest. But not much to do with it right now while it's just like sitting here in range. I would say that if we close, it's so hard to say because OPEX can have these like crazy rallies towards the end of the session. Like today is actually options expiration. We've already seen some pretty crazy moves here in the middle. So at the end of the session, sometimes you can see very strong directional moves that kind of make no sense. just because of how options expire and what that does to price movement. But I would say if we don't take out the high, we close somewhere in range, particularly if we close below the session mid or down here closer to 300. I would go into next week. I would call it cautiously bearish. Like I would call it for myself like neutral with a slight bearish lean, just because of that rejection above 30K. It's just so many times the price has gotten up there and they just can't find buyers. But just because I have maybe a slightly bearish lean going into next week doesn't mean that I'm going to just start shorting things right now. If we hadn't had this spike from this news, whatever this was, I would probably be looking to try to short 420 right now. They're really struggling to get it above this price. I'm gonna like move my depth of market down there. You can see some sellers stacked in here. There's like a 10 and 11. They're kind of like, they're not huge, but they're present. But like I said, just because of the market's tendencies and my observations that the market likes to come and clean up these like news wicks, I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna leave it alone. But if we hadn't done that, if this didn't exist, I would be looking to short 420. Stop would be about 30 points higher. I would be looking for us to get back to the point of control around 300 would be how I would set that up. But whoever decided to tweet or drop a news headline like an hour ago to create that spike took that trade away from me. Because it's also like the other thing is this imbalance that they keep rejecting here is also right at the edge of value. You have a low volume node where prices can't quite get into. Your stop could be on the other side of that. So that would be more of like an A plus style setup for me. But because of this, that takes it from like an A plus to like, I don't know, C minus. Also, time of day is not helpful either. If this was happening earlier in the session, I'd be more excited. Hi, Never Suffer. I like your handle. Welcome to the stream. You're catching us towards the tail end of this one, but if I get off stream, it's not just because you got here. We'll be back again on Monday. I'm gonna hang out for like another 10 minutes if anybody has any questions or anything. I don't like having like direct cutoffs on like the time for the stream because sometimes we're trading really well. And sometimes there's a lot of volume and volatility. This happened a little bit later in the session. This is like, closing in on 11 a.m. But what it's doing right now and has been doing for the last 45 minutes to an hour is a lot more common than it continuing to trade nice rotations later into the session. Appreciate you guys smashing the like button. That's happened a lot today. We really do appreciate that. It helps the stream a lot. If there's any interest from you guys in supporting the channel. That is, it seems like such a small thing, but it really does help the stream. So very much appreciate you guys hitting that. I'm going to start to wrap up things here. If you're new to the stream, we will be back again on Monday at the 8:30 open. If you haven't checked out our channel, there are 2 videos called Rewind the Tape that are up. If you're new to order flow, if you wanted to learn how to read a price ladder and look for certain things that you might be able to add to your own trading, we have 2 of those episodes up. They're like 10 to 12 minutes long. We take a trade from the live stream and break it down in greater detail so that you can figure out kind of like what was going through my head at the time, what was happening on the order ladder, and we actually have the price ladder as you would have seen it and as I saw it trading live, and we can slow it down in slow motion so you can see what happens there. So if you like what's happening, enjoy the stream, feel free to like and subscribe. We'll be back again at 8:30 on Monday. Hope you all enjoy the weekend. Stay safe. As one last final caution, it is options expiration. Sometimes there are some absolutely wild moves in the last 45 minutes to an hour. So stay safe, stay on the right side of price, and make sure you respect your risk. Cheers all. Enjoy the weekend.